Ever get that feeling, when you're looking at a concert program and the music, it hits you, not just emotionally, but it's like the music is telling stories about like faraway places.
Yeah, I totally know what you mean.
That's exactly the vibe I got checking out the program for a Symphonicity's High Seas Adventures concert. It's like a musical passport or something.
It is. It's a really cool idea, don't you think? Like using music to explore all these connections between different countries and cultures, especially through, a local orchestra like Symphonicity.
Right, and that's exactly what we're going to be looking at today in our deep dive.
Nice.
And what makes this even cooler is this whole concert. It's all built around the sister city relationships that Virginia has, all around the world. Virginia Beach is where Symphonicity is based.
Oh, wow. That adds like a whole other layer to it, doesn't it? Like knowing that the music was chosen to reflect those global partnerships gives it so much more meaning, I think.
Totally. So today, our mission, if you will, is to really listen closely to these pieces, like really tune in and see if we can understand how they connect to these international friendships that Virginia Beach has built.
I like it. A mission. It's like a quest.
It is a quest. All right. So first up, we've got Mendelssohn's Trumpet Overture, Opus 101. And this one is something else.
Okay, tell me more.
So what really blew me away about this overture is when it was written way back in 1826.
1826, wow.
Mendelssohn was only 16 years old when he wrote this.
Oh my gosh. 16. I mean, what was I doing when I was 16? I think I was trying to pass my driving test and figure out what I wanted to do with my life.
Right. I think I was mostly just trying to get through algebra. And here's Mendelssohn composing this amazing piece of music. And it's not just some random piece either. It sits right there between his super famous string octet and the overture to A Midsummer Night's Dream.
Wow. It's like sandwiched between two masterpieces.
It is. Talk about a creative explosion. Do you think, I don't know, can you hear that youthful energy in the overture itself? Are there moments that sound really fresh or maybe even a little bit experimental?
That's a great question. Yeah, I think you definitely can. There's this exuberance to it, like a real sense of looking forward, harmonically. It's just so full of ideas, like you'd expect from someone who's just bursting with creativity. And it's still grounded in those classical forms, but you can definitely hear those hints of the Romantic era kind of creeping in, that focus on emotion and drama.
Yeah. And speaking of drama, the title Trumpet Overture, but the program notes, they actually mention that while there are these really powerful ceremonial brass fanfares, it's really the strings that kind of carry the action, right, with all this perpetual motion kind of stuff, all these crazy rhythms and figures.
So it's like the trumpets are making these big announcements, these grand pronouncements, and then the strings come in and it's off to the races.
Exactly. It's this awesome back and forth. You've got that strong foundation of the classical structure, which obviously Mendelssohn had already mastered at such a young age.
Right.
But then he puts this romantic spin on it. Like it's all about emotion and drama, and it just kicks off with that super strong trumpet call, and then it just explodes into this really energetic piece. And it's interesting because that opening fanfare, that trumpet call, it's not just a one-time thing. Mendelssohn brings it back throughout the whole overture.
He does. It's like a recurring theme.
What do you think that does for the listener, having that come back again and again? I think it's like his signature. It's like a calling card. It creates this sense of unity. Like the whole piece is held together by these bold statements.
That's a good way to put it, yeah.
And the program notes, they actually say that the fanfare, it links the two main themes that are first introduced by the violins.
Oh, interesting.
So it's like a clever way to tie everything together.
Very clever. And the Trumpet Overture, it might not be as well known as the Midsummer Night's Dream Overture.
Yeah, probably not.
But it really shows us just how talented Mendelssohn was, even at that young age. He could write music that was super dramatic and emotionally powerful, but also really well structured and just brilliant.
And it makes you wonder what could have inspired a 16-year-old to write something like that.
I know, right? What experiences could he have possibly had at that age to pour that kind of emotion into music?
Okay, so let's shift gears a little bit. Let's sail on over to our second piece.
All right, where are we going?
Gustav Holst's Japanese Suite, Opus 33. Now, this one immediately grabbed my attention because, it's right there in the title, the Japanese inspiration.
Yeah, how does a British composer in 1915 end up writing a Japanese suite? That's what I want to know.
I know, it's a great question. So Holst composed this back in 1915, and it was directly inspired by traditional Japanese music.
Okay.
And get this, he actually worked with a Japanese dancer named Michio Ito, who gave Holst actual Japanese melodies to work with.
Wow. So he had the real deal.
He did, straight from the source.
Yeah.
So he wasn't just, imagining what Japanese music might sound like. He had the real thing right in front of him.
That's so cool.
It is. So how did he take those melodies, those authentic Japanese melodies, and make them his own?
So this is where Holst's talent really shines, I think. He took these Japanese-inspired pentatonic melodies. Those are the 5-note scales that give Japanese music that distinct sound.
Right.
And he combined them with his own, harmonic and orchestral language.
Interesting.
So, typical Western scale, it has 7 notes, right?
Right.
A pentatonic scale only has 5. And it often gives it a more open sound, a little less driven by harmony.
I see.
Holst managed to blend that with his own Western musical background, to create something that's both exotic, like definitely Japanese inspired, but it still sounds like Holst. It must have been really unique for audiences back then.
It must have. And the program notes say that the suite was actually commissioned by, remember Michio Ito, the dancer?
Oh, right.
For his Japanese-themed dances.
Okay, that makes total sense. I can just imagine the music and the movement all working together.
It's such a cool picture. And, what's really amazing is that Holst, he never even visited Japan.
He didn't.
No, but he was able to capture that essence of Japanese music so well.
It really shows you his ability to absorb these different musical influences and make them his own.
And for anyone who mostly knows Holst for the Planets, this suite falls at a really interesting point in his career.
Oh, how so?
He wrote it just before he started working on the planets.
Oh, wow.
So do you see any connections? Are there any hints in the Japanese suite of what he would go on to do in the planets?
That's a good question. I mean, obviously the subject matter is completely different, right?
Yeah.
But you can hear him, playing around with orchestral colors and textures in the Japanese suite.
Okay.
And that's something that becomes like a really big deal in the planets.
Yeah.
So in a way, it's like he's experimenting with these new sounds, going beyond what was typical in Western European music at the time.
Okay, so the Japanese suite has this direct connection to Virginia Beach's sister cities, because Japan is one of them.
Right.
And within this suite, there's this one piece that gets a special mention in the program. It's called Sakura, which is a traditional Japanese folk song.
Sakura.
Yes, Sakura. It's been around since the Edo period.
Wow.
And it's a really well-known and beloved melody in Japan.
I can see why.
Right. It's the cherry blossom song.
Oh, right. Of course.
And it's so evocative. It really captures that whole idea of beauty and also, how fleeting life is.
Oh, that's powerful.
It is. And the program says that the song celebrates cherry blossoms, which are hugely symbolic in Japanese culture. Mm-hmm. They represent, the transient nature of life, which is a really profound theme.
Yeah, it is. And I'm curious, what are the origins of the song? Do we know anything about that?
Yeah, actually, it's thought to have started as a practice piece, that beautiful Japanese string instrument.
Oh, the koto, yeah.
And then later on, it became really popular during the Meiji period when it was included in school music curriculum. So it's this blend of tradition and accessibility.
I like that.
Yeah, and it's a really serene and beautiful melody. And the lyrics, as described in the program, they paint this picture of cherry blossoms in full bloom against a bright spring sky.
It's like you can almost see it.
You can. It's beautiful. Mm-hmm. And it really shows how connected the Japanese people are to nature, and the changing seasons.
Yeah.
And get this, for this concert, there's actually an arrangement for soprano and orchestra.
Oh, wow. So they're adding a voice to it.
Yeah.
How do you think that changes the experience of listening to this traditional song?
I think it adds another layer of emotion, the soprano voice can bring a certain kind of expressiveness to the melody that maybe an instrument can't quite capture. And it highlights the beauty of the song, but also that underlying sense of sadness, because the cherry blossoms, they don't last forever.
I see what you mean. It's bittersweet.
Yeah. This particular arrangement we're going to hear includes not just the orchestra and the soprano, but also handbells and recorder.
Wow, that's an interesting combination of sounds.
Right. It should create a really unique and delicate sonic texture. And to add to that, Eriko Tokuro Muri's own background. is really interesting. She's actually from Japan, and she started singing at a very young age.
That's cool.
She's performed with orchestras all over the world, even in Sri Lanka. And since moving to Washington, D.C., she's been involved in all sorts of vocal groups, including a children's chorus and a Japanese a cappella group.
So she brings a lot of experience and authenticity to the performance.
Definitely. It's really special that they have her for this concert. But it looks like the real highlight is going to be Edvard Grieg's Peer Gynt suites.
Those are pretty famous.
Yeah, but here's where it gets really interesting. The program notes say that Peer Gynt wasn't always music.
Oh, is that so?
Yeah, it started as a play, actually.
A play?
Yeah, a 5-act play by Henrik Ibsen, written back in 1867. And it's like steeped in Norwegian folklore and culture.
Ah, so it's like deeply rooted in Norwegian tradition.
Yeah, the program notes say it actually played a big role in shaping Norwegian national identity back in the 19th century.
So like their own national epic.
Yeah, exactly, like a defining story for them.
Fascinating.
So the play itself follows this guy, Peer Gynt. He's kind of this blash, a little self-indulgent, you could say, young man.
A bit of a rogue.
Yeah, and he goes on these wild adventures, and they really blur the lines between what's real and what's myth.
Sounds like a fun character.
And the whole thing is really about these bigger themes, you know, identity, ambition, love, even redemption.
Big stuff.
Right. And it's all set against this backdrop of Norwegian storytelling and folk traditions. So Grieg enters the picture almost 10 years later, in 1876. Ibsen commissions him to write what's called incidental music for the play's premiere.
Incidental music?
Yeah, it's basically music written to go along with the play. You know, set the mood, highlight certain actions, just really enhance the atmosphere.
So like a film score, but for a live play.
Exactly. Can you imagine being Grieg, you know, being asked to capture this, like, super fantastical and culturally important story in music?
Yeah, the pressure must have been immense.
But the program notes say that Grieg really nailed it. He blended these folk melodies with, they call it really expressive orchestration.
So using the different instruments in a really deliberate way.
Exactly, to like really evoke emotions and paint these sonic pictures. You can almost hear the Norwegian landscapes in his music, and even like these medical creatures.
I can see that.
Now, the full score for the play is actually pretty long.
How long are we talking?
Like 90 minutes, a lot of music.
Wow, yeah, that's a commitment.
So later on, Grieg took some of the best parts and arranged them into 2 orchestral suites, and those are actually like super famous now.
More famous than the play.
The program notes seem to suggest that, yeah, so when you hear these suites, you're really getting like the highlights, the most evocative moments of Peer's journey.
Distilled into a more manageable format.
Right, exactly. And the program notes do a really good job of showing how the music actually mirrors Peer's story.
Oh, tell me more.
So like in some parts, the music is really energetic and kind of bombastic, and that reflects like Peer's youthful arrogance and his impulsiveness.
The brashness you were talking about.
Right. But then there are these other moments where the music is really beautiful and dreamy.
Showing his softer side.
Yeah, or maybe his inner world, you know, his fantasies and dreams. And then, of course, there are the parts that depict his encounters with these mythical creatures. Sometimes they're scary, sometimes whimsical. It really runs the gamut.
Quite a range.
And it all ultimately leads to his return home, where he's trying to find meaning and make peace with his past.
Kind of a full circle moment.
Yeah, really. So the suites are like this musical painting of Norway itself, you know, the landscapes, the mythology. But they're also a reflection of all the different emotions that a person experiences in life.
The human experience.
Totally. And get this, the Peer Gynt suites have become like these iconic representations of Norwegian music and culture.
Oh, absolutely. You hear them everywhere.
Yeah, their melodies are so recognizable. They pop up in movies, TV shows, you name it.
I remember hearing In the Hall of the Mountain King in a cartoon as a kid and being blown away.
It's amazing how deeply ingrained they are in our culture, even if we don't realize it. It really shows how powerfully Grieg captured the essence of Ibsen's story. And you know what? The program notes even recommend a specific recording.
Oh, that's always helpful.
Right. It's the Academy of St. Martin in the Fields, conducted by Neville Mariner. It's on the Hensler Classics label.
I'll have to check that out.
Yeah, the music director says it brings out all these vivid colors in the orchestration and really emphasizes the drama and emotion of the story. So now the big question is, how is this incredible story going to come to life on stage? And that's where Ballet Virginia comes in.
Ballet, huh?
Yeah, according to the program, they were founded in 2008, and they've grown like crazy. They have over 400 students now, and they have a professional company that started in 2019.
So they're a pretty big deal.
Yeah, pretty impressive. The program even lists the names of the dancers in the lead roles.
Let's hear it.
All right, so playing Peer is Jackson Kettle. Solveig is being danced by Haley Ann Vasco. Jennifer Teller is playing Os, and she's also going to be in the Arabian Dance. Then there's Bennett Dunlap as Anitra, also in the Arabian Dance. And finally, Jared Brunson and Darian Flores are playing the natives.
Wow, so we know who to look out for.
Yeah, it'll be really interesting to see how they interpret these characters. And the fact that Ballet Virginia does both classical and contemporary work suggests that their take on Peer Gynt could be pretty dynamic.
I wonder how they'll handle the mythical elements.
Right. And the emotional complexity of the story. Okay, now for a local connection. Let's talk about Virginia Beach's sister city, Moss, Norway.
Moss, Norway.
Yeah, the program actually dedicates a whole section to it. Sounds like a really charming coastal town. It's right on the Oslo Fjord, and it's known for its maritime history, its art scene, and its beautiful natural landscapes.
Sounds like a lovely place.
Right. The program says it used to be a big hub for shipbuilding and industry, but now it's become more of a cultural center.
That's a nice transition.
Yeah, it's got galleries, museums, a waterfront, Yele Island. They even have a bunch of festivals.
Sounds very vibrant.
And get this, Moss and Virginia Beach have been sister cities since 1974.
Wow, that's a long time.
I know, right? It's a really long-standing relationship. And this partnership has led to all sorts of exchanges between the two cities, cultural exchanges, economic collaborations, educational opportunities. It's really all about celebrating their shared coastal heritage and maritime tradition. It's like they're bringing a piece of Moss to Virginia Beach.
Adding another layer of meaning to the performance?
Absolutely. So as you get ready for this High Seas Adventures performance, think about all these different layers. You've got Norwegian folklore brought to life through Grieg's music and Ballet Virginia's dancing. You have the beauty of Japanese tradition in sakura performed by a soprano with deep ties to that culture. And you have this underlying connection to Virginia Beach's sister city, Moss, Norway.
So it's not just a concert, it's a cultural experience.
It really is. It's a journey through different stories and cultures, all connected by the universal languages of music and dance. You'll get to experience a bit of Norwegian identity, the elegance of Japanese tradition, and this idea of communities across the world being connected.
It's a lot to take in.
I know, right? But in a good way. This deep dive into the program really shows how much thought and care went into creating this event. The cultural significance, the storytelling power of the music, the visual artistry of the ballet, it all promises to be a really special experience.
I hope people go in with this perspective.
Yeah, we hope this conversation helps with that. We want you to get the most out of it. And here's a final thought to consider. Music and art can be such powerful bridges between cultures.
Like you were saying about the sister city connection.
Exactly. So as you watch and listen to High Seas Adventures, think about the other connections you might discover, the shared experiences that transcend borders and languages. What will you find?
Now that's something to ponder.
Indeed.
Very intriguing.
All right, until next time.
Happy listening.
This podcast was produced by Symphonicity, the Symphony Orchestra of Virginia Beach, Virginia. To get tickets or to learn more about their concerts and events, visit symphonicity.org.